Tops Knives fans, welcome to this video. This is probably the first in a series of videos that we're going to do to show you ways to maintain and care for your brand new Tops knife, or even if it's not new. The point of this video is how to take care of your handles. Here at Tops, we use micarta and we use G10 on pretty much every knife that we sell. It's one of those two materials, and so we're going to talk about how to take care of them. First things first, we're going to show you some things not to do. So these are mistakes that people commonly make, and we're also going to talk a little bit about safety because we don't want you to cut yourself while you're doing this. So, of course, we picked a dagger that's double-edged as one of the good ones to do for what not to do. First thing, removing your knife from the sheath. Always make sure that your hand that's holding the sheath is in a position where you cannot cut yourself as you pull the knife out of the sheath, meaning don't put your fingers in front of the opening, all right? Once you've drawn your knife out, to clean the handles on something like this is a black linen micarta. Typically, we leave these handles clean and dry. No oil, no extras. That's just a clean, dry handle. When you're cleaning this, you want to try to avoid holding the blade. So ideally, you would wrap it with a towel or put some kind of tape over it. Like painter's tape is perfect because that stuff won't stick. It won't leave a lot of residue, and it's easy to take off when you're done. So what we're gonna do is wrap this in a towel and go from there. So how do you clean your handles? We get this question a lot. There's a lot of different things that can work. For us, probably the quickest, easiest way is to use a very mild solvent. Window cleaner is probably perfect. Some people use Simple Green. Try to avoid stronger solvents or other things like, for example, we have some acetone here. Acetone is a paint thinner, and your Tops knife has paint on it. Powder coat is a paint, Cerakote is a paint. So if you have to use acetone because something's really sticky, never spray it directly on your blade. Spray it on what you're going to wipe your blade down with, and then wipe it down. But again, you shouldn't normally need acetone. Typically, a little bit of window cleaner. Soap and water works great as well, by the way. Window cleaner will take off some of the dirt and grime that's caked on a little bit harder. So again, don't spray it directly on the knife. Spray it on the rag that you're going to use to clean it down. Holding the blade with something that's going to keep it from cutting yourself. You wipe down that handle as evenly as possible. You don't want part of the handle to be wet and part of it not to be. Otherwise, when you're finished, your handle's not going to look even. You get this kind of weird effect where some of it's a little darker than the rest. Scrub it down, make sure that it looks like you got all the dirt and grime off of it, and then you can dry it with a heat gun or a hair dryer. Use a low setting and just dry that cleaner off. And voila, your handle is clean. So, like I said, some things not to do. First of all, be very careful about using abrasives like a Scotch-Brite pad, steel wool, or sandpaper. This type of, so abrasives, they can actually cut through the layers of the micarta. So micarta is, for example, black linen micarta it's sheets of linen micarta that are glued together with some type of a resin or an epoxy, and then pressed down to get a nice thin material. But on this material, you can see that there's a gray, there's like a gray layer, and then there's like a black layer. If you use an abrasive material like a sandpaper, you're gonna sand through the gray layer, and you're gonna expose some black layer. And what ends up happening when you're done is you end up with a layer. It looks like your handle's dirty. You're gonna have this black spot in your handle that just looks like it's dirty, always, and you're never gonna be able to get it clean it's because your handle's not dirty. It's because you sanded through the material and exposed the next layer of material. So you can see it's not that simple, but we always just recommend you avoid using abrasives. They're not necessary for the most part. The other thing is if you're using this abrasive and you're scratching kind of where the tang is exposed, you're easily gonna leave scratches in your powder coat as well. Your knife just doesn't look as good when you're done. Okay, so hopefully you can kind of see some of that shining, some of that black that wasn't there before shining through. And you can see that it just doesn't look good. So avoid using abrasives. So basically right here, it looks dirty still. It looks like it just doesn't look quite right. That's because we sanded through this gray part. You can also see some scratches here if you look real close. That's the kind of thing you want to avoid. That's why we typically avoid using sandpaper or Scotch-Brite pads or things like that when cleaning. We'll do it here only as a last resort, only when we really need to get something off that's just not coming off any other way. So that's things to avoid. Typically with a black linen micarta like this, we're done. You don't need to do anything else with your handle. If you used soap and water and it got clean, you're done, that's all you need. If you used window cleaner or a simple green or some other kind of mild solvent, you're done. Most of our other micarta handles, we'll actually finish those with a wax or with an oil of some kind. And you'll wanna do that too so that it looks good. So for example, we have the Acetone here. And this knife, we've cleaned this handle for the most part. This knife's been used, we did some testing with it. So that's why the handle doesn't look that good. We've cleaned it off. So you can see what the green canvas micarta kind of looks like when it's not properly maintained. So something like this, let's say that you want to clean up some of these spots that aren't quite coming off. Same thing, you use your window cleaner. And this works whether it's a micarta or a G10 handle. Scrub that on. On this one, we would probably use a brush a little bit. You can use a toothbrush at home. You know, if you're into firearms, you can use a gun cleaning brush, same kind of deal. It just helps scrape off some of that dirt and grime you've got on your handle. Always avoid moving near the blade whenever that's possible. Okay, so we've got this handle pretty well cleaned off. I don't really see any of the dirt that was caked on here before anymore. We're gonna dry it off. You want to make sure the handle is dry before you put oils onto it. Now, one question that we get a lot is, what type of oil can I use on my handle? What kind of, what do I, you know, how do I make it look like it looked like when you sent it to me? Really, the answer to that is any oil works. You can use whatever you have on hand, whatever's available to you. One thing that I will say is your hand's gonna touch this thing, so you probably want to avoid motor oil. You know, you probably want to avoid stuff that's toxic or that you don't want on your skin. So that's why a lot of people like to use olive oil, vegetable oil. Those are fine. Under certain circumstances, those types of oils can actually go rancid and make your handles smell bad. I haven't really had that happen because I use my knives often enough that doesn't happen, but it can. So some oils that can't, for example, would be mineral oil. Mineral oil is perfect because it's edible, it's food grade, and it doesn't go rancid. So if you have mineral oil handy, that's perfect. That's probably the best out of anything. Some other options that you can use, the knife oil that we send out with a lot of our folders and a lot of knives. If you buy direct from us, you probably have a bottle of this laying around. This stuff it's odorless and it's non-toxic. It's not edible, but it's not toxic either. So it's fine if you're using your knife and handling it, if you're using this knife oil that we sell. There's others out there like Frog Lube and some other CLPs that are also not, they're not edible, but they're also not toxic. So keep in mind what you're gonna be using the knife for. Something like Acetone, you're probably not using it on food, so you don't need something that is food safe on your handle, but you also don't wanna be using stuff that's toxic. One of my favorite things to use is actually, basically it's like a butcher block type oil. This is this one that I have is a mix of, there's like beeswax, there's mineral oil, you know, there's a few types of oils like that in this particular mixture. Once it's heated up, you end up with it's almost a liquid, but it is runny enough to just be able to add to the handle. So a little bit of this is gonna go a long way. Again, you can use whatever you have available. Mineral oil is great, but I like to use this because it's got a little bit of beeswax in it, so it will stay on the handle a little bit longer. It won't evaporate with time. It's just more of a long-term solution. So you rub that on. Make sure you get all the little corners and into the bow drill divot and things like that. Typically what you'll want to do is let that sit for a few minutes, just kind of soak and set up. Once you've done that, the last thing I do just to kind of clean it off so there's not a lot of oily residue left over is just hit this with the heat gun for a few more seconds. Wipe it off with the dry section of the towel you were using. And you're done. Handles are clean and oiled. All right, everyone, thanks for watching this video about how to clean and maintain your handles. Keep an eye out for some other instructional videos that will be coming, how to maintain your edge, how to keep your blade clean, how to take care of your sheath, how to avoid rust issues with 1095. If you have suggestions for videos you'd like to see of ways to maintain your tops knives, hit us up. Make sure that you're commenting on this kind of stuff. Follow us on our social media channels and take care out there.